Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Esports Weekly Update. I am Kevin Tagupa, and I am joined by Christy Liu. How are you doing this week, Christy?
Uh, got a lot going on this week in terms of homework with school and all that, but everything's good. How about you?
Yeah, very busy week for myself as well. Trying to build my own PC, kind of an early birthday gift for myself,
I
but
saw
running into a
that.
couple issues. So I'm gonna be running back in there after this, to hopefully bang out all the kinks, so we don't have to worry about that anymore. But we are gonna dive right into some Overwatch League news. It is currently, we're further on into the weeks. I believe we're on week 11 of the Overwatch League. And yeah, they had 10 games this week, with Widow, McCree, Reinhardt, and Brigitte all banned, which is kind of unfortunate for me personally as a Ryan player, but the games went by pretty quickly. On Thursday, we had the Rain beat the Justice pretty handily, and then we had the return of the battle for LA with the Gladiators and the Valiant. The Valiant initially led the series 4-3, but the Gladiators tied it up as they won 3-2 on Thursday. Friday, the Mayhem upset the Eternal. The Defiant beat the Uprising, and then the Fuel took took the Shock to 5 games, which was really intense series. I watched the entire thing of that. And Saturday and Sunday we had the Chinese matches. The Hunters beat the Spark. The Dragons, or the Hunters beat the Charge. The Dragons beat the Spark. Charge over the Spark, and then the Dragons over the Hunters. So that's pretty much the recap for the Overwatch League. Um, it was kind of weird this week. Honestly, it was spread out all over the course of Thursday through Sunday. So we had like 2 games some days, we had 3 games the other, but it was just a really long week for Overwatch viewing. It obvious for me, I feel like it's got to be a routine. It's got to be either like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We just watch like 3 games, or 4 games a day, and then just get through it. But the Overwatch League is trying to roll with the punches here, so I'm glad that we got to see some more matches coming up here. Um, Christy, did you watch any of these matches?
I got a few clips. I got to watch a few clips and a few plays,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I didn't have time to watch the full four four games a day and all
yeah.
that.
It was kind of weird. But next week we get a really easy schedule. It's just Saturday and Sunday. All the games. There's going to be 5 games a day. Um, the new hero pool that's going to be pulled up for that is going to be Tracer, Echo, Arissa, and Moira. So is there any words or any thoughts of having Echo banned on the first week of competitive?
Um, I've heard a lot of people saying it's like they released Echo just to ban her, which is very funny to hear going around.
Um, like normally when a new character is released, we don't allow them into competitive until a
Mhm.
week after anyway. So I feel like just including it in this initial hero pool is the same way as saying like, okay, you know what, you have to take a week off before we get into the next week. But honestly, this looks like a really good meta for me. I don't have to deal with Echo in the Sky, and I could still play Reinhardt and not have to worry about 2 shatters at the same time, uh, which is very good for me. Um, as we're moving on into next week. One of the things that we got to point out though is that the NYXL and the Seoul Dynasty are going to be playing in the Chinese servers. So we're going to see New York and Seoul get in the mix with a lot more of the Chinese teams. Do you think that this is going to shake up a little bit of the dynamic of those teams, or just give us something to look forward to?
Um, I think there will be a change as it is a different server, but generally I don't expect much change because it is the same game. It's the same players, same community, but just different server.
Yeah, I feel like the only thing that's gonna change up is the way how the hunters play, because every single time I watch the Chengdu hunters, uh, I I get excited just because they play in such a weird, quirky way to themselves.
Mm.
Like they'll just run ball on every map just because they feel like it. So seeing that versus like the way how Seoul and New York play, it's very um, very slow, steadily, like thinking it out and pushing forward. Um, it's going to be really interesting to see that versus the chaotic nature of some of these teams. But on top of that, speaking of Echo, sadly she was banned this week, but we got too much echo going into the Flash Ops Echo Showdown, which was a tournament that happened April 18th and the 19th. So for this, it was pretty basic. There was a couple of extra things to point in here, but the main things were that there were no hero pool restrictions. So every hero was playable, but each team had to have an echo on it. You could only have two players from contenders per team, and then the last one is the winners of this tournament actually got 10K, and the runners up got 5K, which is really good at giving incentives to some of these players. Um, the team that won it was called Test Team One. It had Dante, Kariv, Jake, Cloneman 16, Harblue, and Fran. It was just a really good matchup, honestly. Um, did you catch any of this gameplay from the Echo tournament?
Only the VOD review of Fran. I was watching her Anna play. That clip was actually from Fran in the
Of Fran, yeah.
tournament. Yeah.
I was watching Super's stream when he was on the team. He had Rascal, XQC, uh It's Your Boy, Sleepy, and Avast on his team. They got knocked out pretty early, but it was an interesting team. Have to give a quick shout out to V Flight though. He's one of our Art U veterans, so to say. He was the observer for day one for this tournament, so congrats to him. On top of that, Monkey Bubble was the one who was behind the production. I really did like their production. It was very clean and very succinct. I was really looking forward to it. So I'm glad that they're actually getting a little bit more in. And yeah, it was just a really fun tournament. Echo does scare me as a tank player every single time that I play a tank. I know that I'm going to be the one who's going to get copied. It's kind of the same mentality as having a Sombra. You just know that you're going to get picked on.
Just hide.
Yeah, just hide. Just don't play the game. Just just only peek when they need shield. But yeah, honestly, it's just a very uh, I wouldn't say stressful, but it's going to be a very interesting next couple of weeks.
Mm.
Moving on from one FPS to the next, let's talk about the big one. Valorant had a tournament this weekend with ESPN Esports, which was the Valorant Invitational. That happened between Monday, April 20th, and ran through the 22nd, which was yesterday. Um, so the cool thing about this tournament is that it was made up of teams that consisted of different other esports scenes and also the game devs. So
Mhm.
there was teams from PUBG, there was teams from Fortnite, there was teams from Apex, there was teams from the dev
CS,
team,
Overwatch, yep.
CS, Overwatch. It was just really cool to see all these FPS games kind of come together and just be like, all right, we're competing in a fun tournament today. It was on their Twitch channel, so if you guys wanted to check it out, you could go for it. um so the winners of the tournament was Team Canyon. Team Canyon was actually made up of Apex Legends players. They had a really good showing against Team Mirage, um, who is the CS:GO counterpart. But when it came down to this game, I feel like when I watched Mirage versus Devs, that was probably one of like the craziest games that I've ever seen. So some high level gameplay, and just watching them, what spots do they peak, what guns do they pick up, it's just a whole bunch of high end gameplay, and I hope that we could take notes from all that. Let's see. Yeah, when it came down to this, I really did enjoy most of the gameplay. Was there anything that you wanted to talk about in terms of the Valorant Invitational?
Um, it's just interesting watching how, like, especially the devs will use their skills, like, because they know how to use these skills, where to throw them, where to put them. It's interesting watching them use it differently than a player who's trying something new and somebody who's used to using a skill in another game, which is probably why Apex Legends, I think, won, because they're used to like using these different skills in a bigger world, but the flexibility I feel like is still there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they're using the abilities the same way how they have it lined up in Apex. It's right there, like almost hand in hand. But the gunplay was definitely between like Mirage and Devs. Like both of them
Mhm.
come from a CS background, so it's just really cool to see them go head to head there. Um, speaking, continuing on to Valorant talk, we could talk about the first round of patch notes that came out for Valorant. Um, so lots of changes that make me happy personally. Um, Riot kind of focused down on Raze and Sage. The big
Mhm.
one was that Raze, um, her paint shells went down from 2 to 1, and then you get another paint shell later on when you get 2 kills. So it's not that you're gonna get fragged in the first like 2 seconds of the game. They're not just gonna throw them over the wall and you just get clapped. Um, I do like the way how it's done, um, though. So Raise's abilities essentially they lowered the number that she starts out with, but she could regain it over the course of the round. Um, and then for Sage, it came into the way how they play with the wall. It could be broken 2 times faster with a knife. Um, and also, the knife breaks the double doors on Haven towards B 2 times as fast as well. And then Sage's slow orbs can now be traversed without making any noise, which is kind of cool for the Sage player. But at the same time, you cannot bunny hop over it anymore. You can't just
Mm.
get the momentum hops, which was kind of a bug for them because they do want the full slow ability.
Yeah, so now it's just a slow orb, literally.
It's a full slow orb. It's not gonna give you any sound, and you can't, cheat your way through that.
Yeah.
Another thing is that there was some bug fixes in terms of the map boundaries. Um, Jet, who has the most, I would say,
Mobility.
mobility in the
Yeah.
game, happened to get on some trees. In trees, on top of doorways, I've seen Jet in like the most random places that shouldn't be allowed on the map. But yeah, I'm glad that they patched some of those out. And then one of the biggest ones that I know Wolfie was really happy about. Valorant patched a performance issue with some of the internet service providers that cause throttling and game traffic. So it's a lot easier for some players to get through and play without lag, which is really important, honestly, in this game.
Yeah. And if you haven't been trying Valorant, you should be jumping onto World of Warcraft right now with their 100% experience buff with the Shadow Patch pre-patch update coming. Shadowlands pre-up pre-patch update. So the event was extended, so now you have more time to prepare yourself for the event, and what Shadowlands is going to bring is a new expansion with 5 new zones and new art, which is like a lot of art. So what this brought upon the community was they made more alts, which is short for alternates, which is also another term for like a new character. Like he's your main character that you play the most, and like this is like a side character, your alt. So there's more alts going around in WoW right now.
Yeah, always when there's a new patch or something new that's coming out, players definitely want to get their hands on it and try to get as much experience as they can. So honestly, this is a great way to bring more traffic to World of Warcraft.
Hmm. Yep. And then in back to Riot with League of Legends, they recently buffed the top laners, and then 3 top laners in name are Quinn, Lissandra, and Gnar. The reason behind this is they wanted to buff more ranged characters to counter the melee, like Aatrox, Set, Ornn, and Renekton, who have been dominating the Rift recently. So even and they might also mentioned though Quinn is technically an ADC, she is typically seen in the top lane, which is why they buffed her to target the top lane. And then Gnar also I guess they tried to buff his overall win percent, which was standing at 48, which is in plat and above, which is the lowest win rate for any top laner.
Yeah, it's always difficult to find like a solid balance, especially when it comes to MOBAs in general. So
Hmm.
I'm glad that they are giving love to some of the lower played heroes and obviously the or champions, and giving them a little bit more pick rate, a little bit more playability. Shake up the meta a little bit. Um, but obviously, only time will tell if this will be too much or just enough. Um, so we will see what the results of that will be.
Yeah. And then I know we mentioned new games last week. I don't remember if we talked about Naruto. Like Naruto Shippuden Ultimate Ninja Storm 4, Road to Boruto. which is coming out. You can pre-order now, and then if you pre-order, you'll have new content like 11 ninja costumes for the Boruto era, and then you're gonna early unlock 22 playable characters and Momoshiki and Kinshiki Otsutsuki, the if you watch the movie about Boruto. And then you also want to note that these characters are all playable and unlockable through the storyline, but this pre-order will unlock them early for you.
Yeah. Do you think that pre-order bonuses, like just unlocking all the characters, is fun? This is just how I think of it. I like the challenge of unlocking all the characters, and like
Mm.
it gives you playtime. It's just like there's a reason why I'm playing through the story mode to get more. But I do understand if like people are playing this for a more competitive scene, they might want to just get it. So they're like, okay, I know how to practice this character. I know how this character works.
I know when I played the an older version of this game, I didn't really play story mode besides if I wanted to kind of rewatch the story that I watched in the anime already, because I
Mhm.
spent majority of my time just PvPing or like in a custom just against a bot, not so much story mode. That's my personal take.
So
So
yeah,
I can
there's
understand that.
both spectrums. I like the story mode. Some people just want all the characters. Um, so yeah, speaking of new releases, we're gonna go into the actual console war that might be brewing upon us. The first one is the PS5. There's been a lot of talk that the PS5 is actually going to have a limited release upon, um, its release coming up in the holiday season. So when it comes to the PS5, um, the thing that we know is that it's gonna have VR extra stuff. It's gonna have a lot of really cool. It's got a new controller. Everybody's memeing about the controller that it's sleek. Um, but honestly, the fact that they're limiting the number upon release, I feel like is something that is worth discussing.
Mm.
Do you think that you know, Sony should be releasing as many as they can so that everybody can get their hands on it? Or do you think the limited number is just to like test the waters first and then see how many they should release?
I think half of it is testing the waters and half of it is just having that exclusivity of like, oh, nobody else has this. I'm willing to pay more for it, or I don't know. Like I don't think they'll charge more for a limited release. I think it's just the hype about it. It's that much more special, you know?
Yeah, it's one of the scarcity rules thing where it's like with new shoes. When a new shoe drops, everybody wants it because you know that they're not going to make it again.
Mhm.
But with the PS5, you kind of know like, if you're going to make one, they're probably going to release it to the world eventually. So it might lose that hype a little bit. Um, but we will take a look at their rival with the Xbox X Series, which is going to be right here.
Let's have a dream which isn't under control. And then you would get more and more adventurous. And you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. And finally, you would dream where you are now.
So yeah, that was the version, the X Series X for Xbox, and that's going to be also dropping during the holiday season. Um, so we could talk about a little bit of the specs here and there. The PS5 is for sure gonna have VR support, so they are gonna keep the PSVR built in. As for the X series, they have their specs finalized in terms of like dimension and what the console runs. Um, so honestly, the X series looks like it's more prepared to be released at any time. And the PS5 is still kind of in the shadows. We don't know what's coming around the corner.
I think I know more Xbox players than I do PlayStation, which is also why I'm assuming PlayStation would feel a little bit shaky releasing this new console. Like, but I also really like the design that the Series X went with. It's very modern, classy. I think will fit very well coming into the future of consoles.
Yeah, it's very compact. When it first came out, like everybody was making the joke that it looked like a big refrigerator
Oh my
because
god.
like compared to the size of the controller, they're like, "Oh wow, I can fit an entire sandwich in that." But like honestly, I'm really excited to just see what games come out for these. The
Mhm.
reason why I pick up certain consoles is for the exclusive games. So if let's say if PS5 drops like a game like a brand new God of War or something like that, I'm like, okay, I might have to pick that up. But if the X series comes out with like they're gonna make a new Halo, you're like, all right, maybe I might have to go back. So there's a whole bunch of different factors that come into, especially holiday 2020. That was the release prior to the breakout and everything. So we'll see if this number still holds out. But if it does, if you were to pick one up, would you go X series or are you going PS5?
My family's a PlayStation family. I'm gonna have to stick with PlayStation whether I want to or not. But yeah, I think I'm leaning towards the PlayStation 5 just because it's been there for my family and me.
Yeah, I lean towards the PS family a little bit as well, but honestly, right now in terms of like knowing what's in the X series does have all of its specs out, so I'm kind of
Mm.
like this is a solid piece of equipment. I have yet to see what the PS5 has, so we'll continue on when we get more information about the PS5 and the Series X. But let's go on into our equipment talk of this week. This week we're going to be tackling the the topic of peripherals, which are controllers and like the thing that you use in order to play the game. Most people play on if you're playing on console, the very most basic thing is the controller. It depends on which one you're playing, obviously. For me, I use a PS4 controller just because it's like it's on hand, it's here, it's wireless. I use that, and also for some PC games, I also use a regular controller because platformers are a lot easier to handle when it comes to controllers. And
Mm.
the main thing that I can give you in terms of pointers on controllers is that it's whatever's comfortable for your hands. If you feel like, oh, I lean more towards a PS4 controller, that's fine. If you like the Xbox controller, that's also fine. If you like to fully customize it, there are many places that will do that for you. Um, and yeah, controllers depend mainly on the console, but when you're on PC, you can kind of do whatever you want.
Yeah, I
Um,
played the Naruto Shippuden game. It was originally an Xbox game, but I bought an Xbox controller in the shape of a PlayStation controller, and I kind of just got away with that because I liked the feeling better.
Yeah, it's one of those things. It's the same thing as like when you see players go to Smash tournaments. Back during the Wii era, people would go, sideways nunchuck, maybe nunchuck or sideways Wiimote, nunchuck and Wiimote, or everybody who's tryhard comes in with their own GameCube controller. You know those guys.
Yeah.
Now we're at the point where you could bring your GameCube controller. You could have a Switch Pro controller. It totally depends on what is most comfortable for you. So definitely, experiment with it. The next one is a little bit more niche. It's more leaning towards players who are in the fighting game scene. It is a fight stick. Fight sticks are pretty cool, honestly. Like I have one. I grabbed this Hori Fight Stick Mini. This is probably the most affordable one, and it's really small. I use this for some PC games if I feel like it, and I also use it when I play on the PS4. I'm trying to get better at it. I don't know how to do it like to the pro level or anything, but it is something worth experimenting with if you guys want to try out a fight stick.
I've
Um,
seen that. They brought a fight stick the size of a counter to the game
y-
lounge before.
yeah, it's one of those things where like you could have a tiny one. This one fits in my backpack if I want to go out anywhere, but like there are people who will walk with like, like literally like a stone in their
Yeah.
bag, and you're like, okay, this is what you play on. The cool thing about the fight stick though is like if you play on a fight stick, it translates almost 1-to-1 whenever you go over to an actual arcade.
Mm.
So if you were to go to an arcade setting, you know your button, you know how it feels. You can't plug in your PS4 controller into an arcade machine. You have to play with what they have there. So a fight stick will give you that kind of control there. Now we're going to talk about you PC gamers like us. The first thing that we're going to tackle is mice. We went over this before. Christy and I have the big debate: do you go wired or wireless? So Christy, what do you use?
I'm I almost said wired, but I'm wireless because I like it feels cleaner, less drag, and just mainly because it's cleaner. I feel a bit more space to have on my mouse pad, and I feel a bit more free.
Yeah, I understand not being tied to your PC, but I like knowing that my mouse is in my computer. That's just like an extra, security measure for me. Um, but yeah, I'm more of a wired guy. I like my mouse near my PC all the time. I have a tendency with wireless mice to like go to my bed and then like,
Yes,
use it
that's
from
the
my
big
bed.
debate. That's why I love my wireless mouse. I can watch anime and skip through the episode from bed.
From your bed, okay. Like
Yes.
mine's different. Like this is for gaming only. I separate mine out.
Mm.
Last time I had a wireless mouse, I remember I like lost it and I didn't know where it was. So I was like, you know
Oh.
what? I'm sticking with a wired mouse. It stays with the computer and it stays there. But once again, when it comes to mice, you want something that feels good, and it also depends on the way how you hold a mouse.
Mhm.
Um, there's people who hold it like a flat palm. There's other people who like claw their hand. So de- depending on how you hold your mouse depends on how you should, buy accordingly.
Mhm.
Um, my hand lays completely flat on it, um, so I get one that has like a thumb groove, so it's easier for me to get in there. Um, but yeah, it really depends on what feels good in your hand.
Yep. What about keyboards? I like cherry browns. The tactical feel.
Yeah. When it comes to keyboards, we definitely want to talk about that since we are PC gamers. We have to talk about switches. Okay, so
Mm.
switches are the way how the keyboard feeds back to you whenever you're trying to, whenever you press a key, sometimes you want it to feel like something's coming back. Sometimes you just want it quiet. I personally use Cherry MX Reds, which are quiet, and have very little feedback. It just feels like I'm just tapping away at it. I know Chris, you use brown switches, correct?
Yes, I like the tactile. I had blue, which were the clicky, clicky, clicky loud ones. Then I switched to browns because we have roommates.
You want to hear what a blue sounds like? Go
Do I
right
want
here.
to? Oh
I have an
no.
old blue one. So my red one, when I type here, I'm just gonna hop on the document real quick. Like this is how quiet it is. Like I'm just So that's red. It's really quiet. And here's blue. Hi there. You can hear all of that. Sometimes well, like when we were initially starting out in gaming, right? You wanted to be like, wow, I want everybody to hear every FPS, every stroke
Oh
that I'm
my
making,
God.
you know?
Too much.
That's what
Yeah.
the blue keyboard was for. Um, now that I'm always on Discord and using it with friends, you don't want to
Hmm.
be that guy whose keyboard is just blasting out everybody's ears. So, yeah, that's why I switched over to Reds. They're nice, quiet, and more courteous for everyone. But if you're home alone and you want to make loud keys and noises, go for the blues. It's totally
Or
up to
go
you.
for the browns. Don't lose that tactical feeling.
It's totally, once again, it's all up to personal preference. Check which keyboards have certain things on it
Hmm.
because it might determine the way how you purchase. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's gonna wrap it up for the equipment talk, peripherals wise. If you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to just bother us. We can definitely dive into it a little bit more if you guys are interested.
Add us
Um,
on Twitter.
yeah, it'll be,
Oh.
but don't blast us. Um, so last but not least, we know that we're in a quarantine right now. It's the coronavirus era. Um, I want to talk about party games and games that will get people together. It's one of the things that yes, we have to social
Mhm.
or physically distance each other from each other, But there are a lot of games that people can play on a more, low key, casual level that will get everybody together. Games that you can kind of like, play with your mom, your grandma, or play with like friends from across the world. Like it's just very simple, not PC intensive games, right? Um, so the first one that I want to tackle is the Jackbox series. This is games that you usually have at a party. When it comes to Jackbox in general, it's just a variety of party games. It's got things from like a Mad Gab esque gameplays. There's some where it's like Mafia, where that's push the button. And then there's a couple of other drawing games as well that are located inside the Jackbox party packs. Last week they had a full-on sale for Jackbox games. They were upwards of almost 66% off. So if you guys want to hop on that, they might still be going on Steam. And it's a really cool way of just connecting with people. As long as they have an internet connection and either a phone or a computer to use, they can play. Um, so yeah, Chrissy, have you played any of the Jackbox games?
A long time ago, and then I keep getting picked on, so I don't play it anymore.
Hey, okay, Christy, we won't pick on you as much as we've picked on other people. No,
Oh no.
but like in our friend group, like there's a lot of just like running jokes,
Inside jokes, yeah.
inside jokes, and it's really great to like throw those in because
I think they're
everybody,
funnier too, though.
yeah,
Like,
it's more personal that way too, and it's a lot of fun. But yeah, Jackbox Party Pack, highly recommend if you guys are trying to get a group of maybe 3 to 8 people together. Um, moving on from there, we're going to talk about Tabletop Simulator. Um, yeah, if you guys like board games, this is a way how to play board games online. Everybody has to buy their own copy of it, but all the games that are in the workshop are free. So if somebody has created the game before, or you have a version of the game that you want to try, they have it kind of built into the system already. Um, Most popular amongst my friends is Uno. We play a lot of Uno. We play Cards Against Humanity. We've played Joking Hazard. The one that we played recently though was called Metagame. It's kind of a version of Cards Against Humanity, but it'll be like, what is a game that reminds you of childhood, right? And then all of the answers are just like video game titles. So we'll throw in like, it's Pokemon or um X, Y, and Z, Smash Melee, they're all a certain card. And it's just really interesting to see that play out.
that sounds cool. I didn't play the mini games, so I'm gonna lose though.
No, it's all good. The other fun thing about Tabletop Simulator is because it's kind of like a sandbox game, kind of like a lot of other games, but it gives you the option to kind of customize what you can do in it. So on top of like just regular, card games, there's jigsaw puzzles that we do sometimes. And then we also do mini golf on Tabletop Simulator, which is hilarious. Um, but yeah, we'll move on from one sandbox to the next one. This is actually Valve's biggest one. It is Gary's mod. Lots of us call it Gmod. It is one of our favorite like sandbox style games where essentially you just grab stuff from the workshop, games are already there, and then we go ahead and play. When it comes to Gary's mod, there's a lot of game modes in there. The ones that are most popular though that we want to mention are Murder and Prop Hunt. When it comes to Prop Hunt, it is like playing like hide and seek, but for like Counter-Strike maps. So you can be like a little can and hide in a corner. But every, I think 40 seconds it will activate a taunt. So it's like super loud so that everybody knows where you're at. So you have to either run away or change into something else. And there's hunters and then there's props, and you just kind of play hide and go seek that way.
It sounds fun.
Yeah, it's really funny. We've played with Kumo and V Flight before. Kumo is always an orange. She's always an orange, and she hides under a car. And I'm like,
Oh, smart.
like,
That's so
like
smart.
we're like, why is the car yelling at me? And she's like this small, orange tucked underneath, and then she'll change into like a can, and she'll hop on top of like a box. V Flight slipped in between two boxes, and we're like, how did you even get there? He's like,
Oh
oh
my
yeah, smaller
goodness.
player model. It just happens like that. But honestly, it sparks creativity, and it's also a very fun hide and seek game. The other one was Murder. It's like playing, how can I say this? There's one person with a knife, and then everyone else doesn't have a knife, and there's one person with a gun. So essentially, you're trying to find the one person who has a knife, and the knife person's job is to get everybody there. The guns person's job is to kill the murderer. So it's really interesting to see, like, oh, who can I trust? It's a very fun role playing game, and you use the same maps as you do in Counter Strike, and it's still a lot of fun, honestly.
Wow.
So
Sounds a lot more fun than the regular Counter-Strike for me. I could not shoot people, but I didn't know they modded like that.
yeah, you can have a lot of really fun, interesting mods in here. And then obviously the last one, we didn't get to play a lot of it in my party, but Stop It Slender, where one person plays a Slender Man and the other people have
Oh
to gather the 8
no.
pages. It's kind of like Death by Daylight, but still spookier. You still have all those options to go into. So we have those options to go into. So I'm really, really happy that we have that option to go into. So that's gonna wrap it up for party games. If you guys want to try out any of these, um, get your friends together. Just say only one person, by the way, has to own a Jackbox copy. Everybody else could just hop in via Jackbox.tv and just hop in.
But does that one person, can they only host
What do you mean?
or
The
can they play
only
too?
person who has the copy is the host, essentially.
Mm.
And then everybody else can hop in. So, Christy, you've seen some of the shirts that have come out of that. We have the
Yes,
crunchy meme.
genuine designs.
Yeah, it's very funny designs. There was one. Um, there's just a whole bunch of just creative ideas that you can throw in there. So you just have to get used to, the humor of your group, how you want to play it out,
Mm.
and who's in the party. Like I always get fun. I got made fun of because of the your bash, and everybody uses that as a slogan.
Sorry.
No, it's funny. It's hilarious. I've learned to embrace it, and it's great because you're just like, oh, okay. There's a picture. There's a picture of a dog, and it just says why you're single, and I'm like, oh, come on, man.
Oh
Like, the dog is cute. I don't need this. But honestly, it's a fun way to keep in touch with people, and yeah, make sure that you game together, because that's the only way how we can currently keep in touch with everyone.
no. Mhm.
Um, so that's gonna be it for Esports Update Weekly. Christy, do you have anything planned for this week? Are you gonna be partying inside?
Inside? No. But recently a couple of my friends have been thinking about re-downloading Terra. Have you heard of Terra? It's a
Oh yeah.
MMO. Yeah, so I might get back into that. Let's see how it goes. I tried it out like 2 nights ago, just started before that because I played a lot before and a lot changed. So I'll
Yeah,
see how they like it.
it's one of those things where like you're used to the old gameplay and then you come back and you're like, what is this game? Like
Yeah, it was
I
like
have
this
all
the
my
whole
cool
time.
items. Yeah. For me personally, tomorrow's my birthday, so I'm gonna go and
Happy
stay
birthday.
inside. Um,
Birthday stream?
but maybe I'm thinking about it. I might actually stream Valorant for the first time. I'm thinking about it.
Oh,
It depends on if friends want to join in because I don't want to get yelled at over the mics. But honestly,
that's
like, um, there's that, and then later on, I'm just gonna touch upon it. Um, there is going to be a tournament that I'm casting, so I have to get used to all the Valorant stuff, all the jargon, and all that stuff. So,
mm,
that's what I'm really looking forward to this week. So, we'll see how everything else plays out. Um, but yeah, thank you everybody for tuning in for Esports Update Weekly. I'm Kevin Tagupa. That's been Chrissy Liu, and thank you. We will see you back here next week.
same time.